Hello, everybody, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Picard, Season 1, Episode 5, The Impossible Box. If you have been digging my reviews, thank you for coming back for repeat viewing, and please be sure to like and subscribe in the box below. Now, let's get to it. The episode begins with Shoji, who is having a dream of herself as a young girl. She's in her father's lab and she ends up waking up afraid, but she isn't exactly sure what she's afraid of. So, of course, sleeping right next to her is Narik, and he's continuing to play the part of the doting boyfriend. In an effort to sort of try to pick her brain and see what her dream is about. So during this change, Soji drops a couple of more tidbits like about Romulans because she knows everything about Romulans, and the fact that Romulans have like a name that they give to the public and a name that they save for the people that have their heart. Now keep that in mind because that's going to come into play a little bit later. So anyway, we move over to the ship where Killer Agnes is lying to Picard about how Dr. Maddox died. And so Picard, being Picard, he feels, he's mistaking her guilt for grief. And he's, trying to comfort her. But Eleanor, who's like Pinocchio, he's kind of sensing that there's something else going on and that she's feeling sort of haunted about something. But of course, like this makes her angry, and she basically tells him to mind his business. So Picard is really upset. All right, because he understands now that he has to go to the artifact in order to retrieve Sophie. And I have to tell you that this is a fantastically acted scene by Patrick Stewart. When he is talking about the Borg, rarely has Picard seemed so vulnerable and, quite frankly, so frail. I mean, you really see how haunted like Picard is by what happened with the Borg, after all these years. And we're reminded once again that he's a man who has more years behind him than he has sort of ahead of him, which is always interesting because, again, we tend to think of Picard as sort of this invincible sort of guy, and he's not. Shaken, Picard returns to his study and he starts to do some research on the artifact, and he discovers that Hugh was there. And there's also this really incredible moment where he's doing this research on the Borg, and a picture of himself as Locutus emerges. And he's looking at it, and the picture of Locutus merges with the current reflection of himself. You know, and in a way we understand that the cutest has never really left him. I mean, really, really powerful stuff. Meanwhile, a shirtless Rios is playing something that looks like soccer, merely for my personal enjoyment. No, I kid. I'm sure it's for other people's enjoyment as well. But I think that we can all agree that Santiago is hot, hot, hot stuff, right? And so I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, okay, here's a shirtless scene. The only reason why they would be having this is for whatever woman that they're chemistry testing him with to show up. So it's either going to be Rafi or it's going to be Killer Agnes. Sure enough, it is Killer Agnes. She shows up. She starts talking to him, about how sad she is, and like Picard, he's just assuming that, she is like grieving, like her friend. He offers her a drink, and then they have some playful banter that very quickly turns into a mutual invitation for sex. I mean, like from like 0 to 100. And then before you know it, they're like headed off to his quarters. I'm not exactly sure, quite frankly, what the point of this scene is. Killer Agnes talks about how, scared she is and how hopeless she feels, which I guess is supposed to make us feel kind of sympathetic with her and kind of what she's going through, but I don't, right? Also, I don't know kind of why they would rush sort of an intimate scene between two characters that are still kind of strangers to the audience. Like, they're kind of growing on us, but I don't think we like them enough, both as individual characters or as potential couples, to really kind of be shipping them or really care. So I'm thinking probably what's happening is that the reason this scene is happening is so that when the truth about Killer Agnes is revealed, then Rios is going to feel kind of betrayed because he sort of, let her in a way. That's the only thing I can think of. Meanwhile, Twincess is back. And I want to say that I know that they're not twins, that Nerys is older or whatever, but again, they're back like with the whole inappropriate kind of conversation and touching and things like that. And I feel like it's supposed to come off um as an older sister sort of teasing her younger brother, but it's just like it still sort of gives me like creepy like incest like vibes, okay? So anyway, Nerissa accuses Narik of being in love with Soji, and she threatens to sort of like take over the plan. Narik, though, quickly sort of gets her in line and tells her that he has a plan and everything is under control, and he's almost got Soji exactly where he wants her. And so Nerissa decides to, let his plan sort of play out to its natural conclusion, okay? So back on the ship, the crew are talking about how Picard can get onto the artifact. Killer Agnes offers to use her scientific credentials because, of course, she wants to be on the artifact because she has a plan of her own. But Picard says that's not going to work because, Romulans know me because, he's infamous. Like, he's like public enemy, like #1, which we saw in the other episode. Like, they hate him. So they would know who he is, and plus the Borg ship and the collective would know who he is because the collective like never forgets one of their own. So they have to go through official channels, right? So Picard is not a favorite of Starfleet these days, so he's not gonna be able to get the credentials on his own. So they turn to Rafi. Now, Rafi is very depressed and messed up because in the last episode, she got rejected by her son. All right, but she still manages to contact an old friend of hers that's still in the Federation named Emmy and sort of really kind of strong arm her into giving those credentials. Unfortunately, it cost her friend because her friend, is pissed and is like, you know what? I've had it with you. This is the last straw. Like, never contact me again. And while the crew is like impressed and happy, they don't really see how clearly upset Rafi is about sort of losing another person in her life. Okay. So Riaz takes Rafi to her room where she starts to talk about her son and sort of everything that happened, when he went to go see, when she went to go see him and all the rejection. And you can really kind of see sort of the bond between them. And I think that they have a really great chemistry and you sort of buy that they've been friends for a very long time. Although it's kind of interesting to me that they've been friends for so long, but he didn't know that she had this family. So I don't really know how close the friendship kind of was. I'm gonna say I'm really kind of over like these drunken like scenes. Okay, I'm really over every time I'm seeing one of the characters. They have a drink in their hand or they're smoking something. Like I get it. Like they're edgy. Like they're different. Like they have issues, and like we can't expect their issues to be taken care of overnight. But it's kind of overkill at this point. Like if I don't see Rafi drinking or smoking something, I'm still gonna know that she's an alcoholic and a drug addict. If I don't see Riaz smoking or drinking something, I'm still gonna know that once in a while he likes to indulge in those things. Like I don't need to see it like all the time. Okay. So meanwhile, we're back at the artifact with Soji and Narek, and he is doing a really good job of like playing mind games with her. He actually successfully gets her to start doubting even like her mother and like the conversations that she's having like with her mother. And so she reaches out to her mother and she realizes that she's like falling like asleep when she's talking to her mom. So something is just going like something's wrong. And so just instinctively, there's this really great scene where she's going through like all of her items, everything she owns, like from now, like up until the point where she's like a little girl. And she realizes that everything that she owns is only a couple of years old, even the stuff that she had when she was a baby. And that's just not possible. Like so she freaks out, and of course she runs to Narik. Now Narik offers to take her sort of to this Romulan chamber where she could do this meditation, and it's supposed to help her kind of see the inside and sort of kind of figure out sort of what is going on. So they go to the chamber, and before they start, Narik tells Shoji his real name, which I think is supposed to tell the audience, that he really does love her. And frankly, to me, that's bull, and that's because of what we'll see what happens next. But anyway, not only does he have his sister listening to everything that she's saying, okay, but once like he gets what he wants from her, which is the information of the home planet that they've been alluding to, he literally leaves her in the chamber to die. Like he tries to kill her, okay? And he has this really like sad like expression on his face. Oh, and before he tries to kill her, he even says, "You're not real." So he just drops the bombshell on her, that she's synthetic, even though I don't know if she got it or not, and just leaves her there to die, right? True love, okay? Like whatever. So the fact that he's sitting there looking all torn and looking all distressed and these pain expressions, I don't care. It's the same thing for like Killer Agnes and like how pain she looked last week and how upset she looks, because look, I understand that they're acting based on the strength of some prophecy, but the future is not set, okay? There's always another way. And they're not even trying to find that other way, okay? They're just choosing to be murderers. So, save me with that. I know other people will feel differently, but I don't feel sorry for him or Killer Agnes or what they have to go through, okay? Anyway, the whole ordeal finally activates Soulg, okay? And so she manages to use her synthetic superpowers and escape. Now I want to talk about the scene that I'm sure everybody was waiting for, and that's when Picard and Hugh were finally reunited. I was really thrilled about the hug. It really made me feel warm and fuzzy. I didn't know how a reunion would go between the two of them, because they weren't characters that were shown to be bonded or to be particularly close. In fact, I half expected Hugh to be where's my friend Geordi? Although I'm sure he kind of knows sort of what happened to Geordi the last time he saw the crew in descent. So, I'm sure he knows kind of what's going on. But it is a marvelous scene. Once again, Patrick Stewart's acting is just amazing in this. You can sense his apprehension, his fear of being back on the Borg ship. It's just palpable. And it's this part where he these ex-Borg are grabbing him, and he's freaking out because he's lost in some kind of memory. But what they're really trying to do is stop him sort of from falling over the edge, but he can't see that because again, he's too wrapped up in his own pain and his own terror, and Patrick Stewart just nails that. So anyway, the ex-Borg, they call themselves ex-Bs, which is kind of cute. They're all over the ship. And Picard walks around and he's looking at the XBs, and he's just marveling, at the way that they're being unassimilated and sort of getting some of their humanity back. And he turns a corner nearly 30 years in the making, when he makes the comment to Hugh that Hugh is doing fantastic work, and that it's important that people see sort of all underneath all that synthetic and brainwashing that the Borg are victims and not monsters. He started to make the little baby step a little bit with Hugh and Hugh, but he, eventually sort of gets there now, I think, which is really, again, another wonderful character moment for Picard. And I also think it's very brave of Picard, because he has to include himself in that, right? And so for a man like Picard to think of himself as a victim, it can't be easy. So, again, Bravo, Sir Patrick. Anyway, Picard tells Hugh that he's looking for Shoji, and Hugh is not really surprised by this because he's sort of had a feeling that something is going on with Shoji. Plus, he thinks it's weird that this new Romulan operative, who he just instinctively knows is a Romulan operative, shows up and is mighty cozy, with Shoji. Now, was it just me, or did you catch the fact that Hugh said that Narik showed up 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. So you're telling me like in 2 weeks, okay, Shoji met this man, started having an affair with him, and started to believe his declarations of love, and this is somebody that she barely even knows? All right, see, I knew there was a reason why I wasn't like buying like this, whole grand romance thing, because it 2 weeks, okay? So anyway, the episode ends with Soulg crashing in front of Hugh and Picard, as Narik is sort of like chasing her down. So Picard convinces Soulg to trust him, as Eleanor arrives. Now the big thing about Eleanor arriving is that Picard ordered him to stay on the ship, but he decided that he was going to disobey a direct order because he felt like it was in the best interest of Picard, which I think is sort of character growth, and it shows that he's not just some little Pinocchio that, Picard's going to be able to boss around, which I think is great. Eleanor and Hugh and Soulg and Picard all run into the Borg Queen sort of hidden chamber, which sort of buys them some time. All right, and while they're there, they find this spatial transporter, which can transport them on the planet of Nepentine. All right, so Eleanor and Hugh convince Soulg and Picard to beam down where they're safe, and they're going to hold like everybody off. And he's really reluctant to do this, but eventually he realizes that he has no choice. All right, and the last thing we see is this very cool scene of Eleanor, telling the advancing Romulans to choose to live, choose my friends to live, like as the doors close, right? Just a great episode, so I really thought that this was a really exciting episode. I thought it advanced the plot. I think it was the first time that I had sort of any real interest in Soulg, whose personality, in my opinion, has sort of kind of been like non-existent. I'm really glad that she's finally hooked up with Picard, because I think that maybe now we'll start to see sort of her personality flourish, and as she sort of through Picard gets to embrace her role as Data's daughter, I think she'll start to become more enduring to us and the fans. And also, we'll sort of get to see, who she is as a synth, right? And what it means to be synthetic. And I think, she's sort of continuing a journey that Data began, who in a way she is Data's dream. And so I'm really kind of interested now to see where that goes. Also, I have a question about this homeworld. So I'm interested to see like what's there, like who is there, like what is there, and how come Maddox didn't mention it to Picard when he was telling him about everything that's happening. So I'm really excited that we're starting to get some answers. Okay. Now I want to talk about the preview. Okay, first of all, if Narissa hurts Hugh next week, like there is going to be hell to pay, okay? I'm just saying, all right? But did you see my boy Riker? Okay, now I'm not gonna lie, like one of the things that excited me the most about the return of Star Trek Picard was to get to see some of my old Next Generation characters I love, particularly Will and Deanna, who were like my favorite character of the series. I knew that they were coming back. I didn't know when, so I am thrilled that it's finally happening, and I cannot wait for next week to see them and to see what they're up to and to see everything that's going on. So I am incredibly excited about that. But as we move into next week, I still do have one question. Where's Beverly? All right. So that is my review for Star Trek Picard, episode 5, and until next time.